The humanist being
presents
When Humanists Attack.
Have you got a friend? If you do, I'm glad. Would you say you have more than one? Maybe you're like me. I've got a handful of close friends I've made over the years, and they're scattered all over the world, and I've lost touch with many of them. In the city where I live, I know a lot of people. We're glad when we run into each other, but sometimes I'm haunted by the question, who can you call when you're down and troubled? In May of this year, the Surgeon General of the United States, Dr. Vivek Murthy, released a public health advisory on our epidemic of loneliness and isolation. Half of all U.S. adults describe themselves as lonely. About the same amount say they have 3 or fewer close friends. And that was before the COVID-19 experience, which magnified the problem. 12% say they have no close friends at all, according to an American Perspective survey published in 2021. Our social networks are shrinking. We're living our lives increasingly online, and people are spending less and less time in the company of others. Just 3 hours a week on average, according to one survey. Loneliness, or social isolation, or disconnection, increases the risk for all sorts of illness, not just depression, not just suicide, but also heart disease, stroke, dementia, and premature death across the board. According to the Surgeon General's report, social isolation has the equivalent effect on mortality as smoking 15 cigarettes per day. We've got a social problem here. How should humanists respond? Dr. Murthy said in a recent interview, "What we have to do now in modern life is intentionally build in the infrastructure we need for connection in our individual lives as well as in our communities." My name is Roger Kimmel Smith, and as I dug into researching this topic further, I read a really thoughtful article by a writer who's been covering the loneliness issue, what she calls the friendship desert, for years as a freelance journalist. Her name is Ari Honarvar, and I'm very happy to say she's my guest on this episode of When Humanists Attack. Ari Honarvar has got a multitude of talents and a fascinating biography. She was born in Iran and emigrated to the United States unaccompanied at age 14. In addition to being a journalist, she's a poet, visual artist, dancer, public speaker and performer, political activist, cultural bridge builder, and a musical ambassador of peace. She dances with refugees, leads workshops on resilience through joy, and campaigns to drop poems, not bombs. She's the author of the novel A Girl Called Rumi, and founder of Rumi with a View, rumiwithaview.com. Ari Honarvar, welcome to When Humanists Attack. I'm so thrilled that you're here. Hello.
I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you so much, Roger.
So I first heard about you just a couple of weeks ago when I read an article you published in insider.com, a first-person article about your trouble making friends as an adult in the United States, and a creative idea you tried to solve the problem. But now, before we get to that idea, which is a very interesting one, I was also interested in who you were. So after a little internet research, I learned you have an extraordinary life story and a dizzying array of talents and accomplishments. And I listened to a couple of other podcast interviews you've given where you describe your childhood in Iran under Khomeini's regime and in the war against Iraq. And the remarkable series of events by which you came to the United States at age 14 and your parents left you behind here. I also learned that in the past few years, you've written other articles on the topic of friendship or loneliness or community building, also first person articles talking about your own experiences. So now, without asking you to recapitulate your life story, what I do want to ask is, how did it happen that from being plunked down in the Western United States as an adolescent through young adulthood and becoming married with a kid, how did you come to recognize that you wanted or needed to promote social connection? Or what's the story of your dance with loneliness?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, my story is not unique. When people move to a place where there is not a community that they have grown up with or they have created on their own, they've got the exact same story with that I had, which is in 2008, I moved to California with my husband and my newborn. And all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, raising an infant is really hard. And that's probably why they keep saying it takes a village. It takes a village. Where is this elusive village?
Yeah.
And
where were the resources?
it didn't take long to see that this proverbial village wasn't going to manifest out of thin air, and I had to figure it out on my own, which, by the way, is a really big ask from our species. And that's partly why we're having so many problems.
Figure it out on your own. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. And what around that time in 2008, it occurred to me that individualism was a failed experiment. We tried it. It turned out to be like a TV dinner eaten in front of the screen without much nutritional value for the body and soul. And it has kept us more and more isolated while making us sick in numerous ways. So, I mean, researchers have been sounding the alarm for many years, and now we have the Surgeon General's warning that it's worse than smoking 15 cigarettes a day, and 3 out of 4 people are experiencing loneliness. And friendship in general has declined considerably to the tune that the number of people with 0 friends has quadrupled since 1990. And this is frightening. Yeah. So, so that's when my journey began. And then I did a little research, and it looked like that even the word free and friends share the same linguistic root, which is pre, meaning to love. And the word friend was originally meant for the free people of one's clan, as opposed to enslaved people who were separated from their families and communities.
Wait, pre? And in what language, pre?
I believe it's Latin.
So interesting.
So, and then I was like, okay, so these systems under which we're all living right now are thriving on profit rather than relationships. Most of us are living in an anti-village world where, the systems are designed to undermine our freedom by fragmenting our communities. And when you do fragment communities, you start having these friendship deserts, which I landed in California in 2008. And so then we're like in this perpetual survival mode where much of our energy is devoted to working and making a living, and then we don't have the bandwidth to have, to just maintain our current friendships. Relationships, if you're a parent, that's even more demand placed on us. But we need survival. We need communities to thrive as a species. We need friends. And rather than being born into a village or plugging into a new one, we're like, all right, go ahead and make a garden in the middle of Mojave Desert without any support. And that's quite an undertaking, especially if if you want a bountiful garden, if you're picky and selective like me. So,
Mm.
so this was kind of that's what I was dealing with. I was looking for very specific friends. I wanted women and non-binary people in my life because up to that point, most of my friends were men. And I also didn't want conversations to revolve around our children and the banalities of parenting tasks. I wanted vulnerable conversations. I wanted to learn about the other person's passion, their fears, their dreams. I wanted, people in my life that were in touch with their creative spirit and had no problem being stuck around, play and dance in public, and when life got hard, cry unabashedly. So that's a really tall order because most of us don't even know how to have intimate relationships and in general.
Yeah.
But then when we do know, reserve it for romantic partners, and rather than just having that intimacy with all of our relations in a way that fulfills us. And so, it was really hard. And I was like, all right, how am I going to do this? So my first task was to find my people, follow the conventional wisdom, and joined social groups, became a parent, a member of the PTA, book clubs, artist gatherings, tango lessons, all of it, anything you can imagine. And
You threw yourself into the existing resources, whatever seemed in front of you.
yeah, if I saw someone interesting, I would be like, okay, maybe they can be maybe they're my people at a gathering. And it yielded to a couple of really close friends. So it wasn't completely, fruitless. But I wanted more people. I wanted a community too. I wanted more good friends and a community. So I decided to become more creative. I coined the term chillactivism and combined activism and chilling with friends.
Right.
So you're channeling your energy not only with chilling with friends, but also doing something meaningful for social justice. And then I wrote an article about that. I posted an ad on Nextdoor and started Make America Walk Again, where neighbors would get together at a point to walk and get to know each other every week. And that was really fun and quite successful too. And I wrote about that too. But then, I'm like, okay, it's been like a decade. I've been experimenting in this desert, toiling around in this desert of friendship, and I haven't found what I'm looking for. So it's time to try something radical.
I mean, the fact that you felt that you needed to take initiative, try something almost counter cultural, makes sense because you had what you called a tall order. You want to connect deeply. It really isn't, that tall an order. It's your right as a human, and your right to demand it. But you're also right that the village doesn't seem to exist. I mean, I wonder from your experience in early life and the family you still have in Iran, are things different there in sort of social organization?
Yes, I can't speak to Iran now because I've been away for so long. But the Iran that I grew up in, community was a given. In fact, I would say there was too much of it in some ways.
Right.
They were
Especially, I
always
mean,
in your business, right?
early childhood frames your sort of orientations to what life is about and what you can expect from it.
Yes, absolutely. And one thing in particular, when I was toiling in the friendship desert, that attracted my attention was the idea of arranged marriages. And when I was young, living in Iran, it wasn't unusual that people partook in arranged unions that turned into loving and long-lasting relationships. Now, these are older people. In my generation, it wasn't so much practiced, but I was surprised. I was like, how could you like not know this person and then just, your family sets you up, and then you're 40 years later, 50 years later, you're still in a loving relationship. And I was like, well, maybe there's something to this. So
Mm.
I was like, what if we applied some of the tenets of the arranged marriage to friendship? So begin with commitment first, come up with and rely on an agreed upon structure, and then let the intimacy and the fun to arise and nurture the friendship. And so I went to various gatherings or conferences, and I used my intuition. I asked a few women and non-binary folks who wanted to, if they wanted to try this experiment with me. And they all agreed, and it
Mm.
was a success. I wrote an op-ed about it in
Mhm.
2021 in Washington Post, and since then I've been overwhelmed with responses from people from all over the world who want to try the same thing. And since then I've offered workshops, one-on-one sessions, and even performed a commitment ceremony for another friend group that wanted to try what we were doing.
Oh, how wonderful.
And yeah, it's kind of baffling because, well, it's baffled experts because apparently it takes 200 hours of spending time together to become close friends. But for my
Oh
friend
dear.
group,
Right, put it that
it
way. It
took,
sounds like too much of a commitment. Who could possibly invest 200 hours, right? You're not even sure. You have to really want to connect, you know.
right. But I mean, that's it, it doesn't, no one ever commits to that. When in the chance friendships, you just kind of like trial and error where you spend enough time with someone and they're like, all right, we're friends.
So
And
that is
here,
another factor in why it's difficult to develop friendships outside of your cultural critique, whatever it may be. That is a significant investment, and so it makes sense that society should be organized in which that it isn't such a currency that people are thrown together over the hours of the day, the days of the week.
right, and that's not the model, the
Mm.
societal model that we have currently. And everything, it's I kind of see it as the inverted pyramid where the all the pressure is on the individual or the parents, and then the whole of the society is on their shoulders rather than the other way around. And but the model that we created, uh, it shows that you can, in fact, become really good friends in a fraction of that amount of time, because that structure provides this safety net for the friendship to really grow fast and become intimate and whatever you want it to be. And
Mm.
we're really good friends. We went on a retreat last December, and I was like, wow, this really is as good as it gets. And then I even
Mm.
got some terrible news while I was on retreat, and I was thinking about returning home, and one of our friends who had stayed behind because they couldn't go on the retreat, she was there, and she was like my proxy. She was able to do what I couldn't do from far away. So I mean, this friendship is as real as it gets.
It's so interesting, and great that you have an experiment that really has succeeded, and that you can present that way. And it's such an interesting positive spin, first on the arranged marriage concept, which, I think in the West, our rap on that would be that is almost a definition of unfreedom. So how, can you spin that positively? But it sounds like you seem pretty clear that the putting the commitment up front actually is key to what makes this work, or what made it work in your case.
It is, and I would say that one of the pervasive myths that is that you have to debunk in order to, for yourself, if you want to try this, is that arranged means forced. And counterintuitively, this model offers more freedom and options than chance friendships, because you can customize your friendship group based on, or friendship person, based on your own needs and desires. And unlike, ending a marriage, whether it's arranged or conventional, and exiting a friendship, an arrangement is really, really simple. All you have to do is say, well, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right. This
And
isn't
just
working anymore.
go on your separate ways. But the cool thing is that
the commitment ceremony, in other words, is not backed up by the force of any law, so perhaps the law of love.
the law of love. I mean, holy crap! Like I'm about to celebrate my 17th year with my husband, and I would say that, when we made our commitment, it was very much like this type of commitment where it wasn't like, oh, death, this like heavy death do us apart kind of, pressure on us. We were like, hey, let's just see where it goes. Let's commit to each other, renew our commitment every day that we wake up. Do I want to be in this marriage or not? And that just frees us up to, the commitment doesn't mean that it's permanent. That's the permanency is what trips people up.
Mm.
Committing is it's just like you set that intention, you have an action, and you're like, this is what I want to commit. But if I change in any way, my needs change, and we can't, or my desires change and we can't work it out, and the other person seem to be going different directions, then we need to revisit the commitment.
Mm. Well, I see you have high standards, again, for your relationships. If you're, committed to facing each day fresh, on that, somewhat existential level, then you're not relaxing necessarily, but you find the freedom in that high plane of connection.
Yes, and I would say that I am relaxing. I'm relaxing into what is, just having a really healthy relationship with reality. And we can relax into it. It's not like every day I wake up with anxiety that, oh my God, am I gonna lose my husband? And he's not having anxiety either. It just is a very chill kind of a way of being and it's very sweet every day. It's like, I'm making a choice today to be with you. Today I'm making a choice. It's a choice. It's not because I made a commitment 17 years ago.
Well, and can we, bring that sort of level of depth, consciousness, commitment, and I guess, passion is what I'm hearing, into other types of relationships, as a way of fulfilling these needs.
Absolutely. And what happened to me is that the arranged friendship model, ever since I started it in 2018, I was like, it really brought clarity to my other friendships and relationships, even with myself, and now I'm so deliberate in how I prioritize my time and do what sustains me in my life. And I'm not shy about asking other people how they define their connection to me. I ask people flat out if they're satisfied with the level of our transparency and intimacy, and
Oh,
then I
wow.
practice.
I don't know how that would land if a friend said that to me, but it is beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be really, really open and to those kinds of things. I'm like, hey, what do you think? Like, what do you think?
Are you being served?
Are you being served? Am I being a good friend to you? Is there anything lacking? And I practice communicating my love and gratitude with people. We don't do that generally. We usually like are very task oriented, or we just kind of forget to say that we love each other, and these are the things that I appreciate about the other person. We don't do that. Things that water the garden of friendship and relationships, and then also communicating my boundaries and honest, like those are my relationship needs: honesty, boundary. And if we're not on the same page, then it's really clear that it's time to move on.
Oh, certainly. I mean, being that explicit about what you need, provide from one another certainly gives you the right to, and obviously makes it easier to get into, the boundary or what might be the harder types of discussions. Like, what about
Mhm.
just a broader spectrum on what connection, what relationships are about? I mean, beyond a species specific perspective, I'm all about humanist, not human supremacist.
Yes, thank you for saying that. And yeah, I mean, what we've done to our other relations on Earth is just terrible. Um, and we can turn this around. The one of the problems that I see is that relationships are, every study is like relationships are the most important thing in the world. And that includes, to me, when I say relationships, that is the relationship to the self, to all of our relations, including animals, plants, whatever they are things.
All my relations.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you,
Mhm.
and also the divine, whatever that means to the person. And we haven't learned how to have those relationships. I was looking at K through 12 curriculum. There is like, we learn math almost every single day, from kindergarten all the way to graduation and beyond. Every single day, something that I don't use even every month. And I was like a science major. I was like calculus and molecular biology and biostatistical analysis in grad school. Those are the things that I did. And now, and even then, I wasn't using it every day. But, so math, we put so much emphasis on math. We don't put any emphasis on how to have relationships. There's not a single course devoted to developing those relationships in K through 12. Most schools, and there's some like little social emotional learning, and there's a war on that too.
Right. And
But
then, of
what
course,
if?
you are together in the room. And of course, the traditional model is you're supposed to essentially refuse to, behave as though you are in a group, right? Right. You have your teacher-centric model. Don't talk to one another. It's
Right.
just so backward from the
It is. It
whole
is.
conversation we've been having, right? I
It
mean,
is.
what culture
What
is,
if?
it's all my relations, right? The indigenous Americans had the correct notion, and were able to set up a society in which togetherness among human beings, as well as with other species, isn't a dear currency. It flows for everyone all day long. So it wouldn't be a problem. But we've set up a society, that almost seeks to exterminate it. I went back to a great book I read in my 20s called The Pursuit of Loneliness by the social critic Philip Slater. Great book from the
Mm,
1970s, and his contention that American culture sort of manufactures loneliness through our twin commitments to the ideology of individualism, right, which is, he says, is rooted in the attempt to deny the reality of human interdependence, and then to technology, which we generally use to avoid having to interact with other people in the flesh.
absolutely. It's interesting. You were like this kind of like a dictatorial model of education, that is like, sit down and shut up and let me tell you what it is. So I mean, that's one of the reasons our democracy is in peril, right? Like we don't really practice democracy, being democratic at school. As soon as we go to school, there is a an expert, someone who, like really good teachers. They're very good at those relationships, and there are many wonderful teachers who do practice more of a democratic way of running their classrooms. But for the traditional or conventional model, yeah, you have to listen to these rules. You have no recourse. You have no way in saying what rule is just, what it isn't. And then when we go to college, it's the same. When we go to work, then our employer becomes our dictator. And and so we have all of that. And then we live right now in an era of pervasive loneliness and polarization. And one of the things that has happened is that our relationships have even become more fractured because of the polarization, because of the loneliness. We're community starved, and long held social contracts keep eroding.
Yeah,
And
so
so,
losing the instinct, for one another, for certainly for seeing oneself in the other. You know, I heard
absolutely.
I heard a talk you gave with another interviewer in which you talked about the Persian version of the myth of Narcissus, and that's coming to mind as you're talking. You want to tell that one?
Yes, sure. Yeah, yeah. So the Narcissus, in the Greek myth, he sees his image in the lake, and he's so beautiful. His image is so beautiful that he falls in love with himself, and he is unable to move, and he eventually dies, because this adoration renders him immobile. And so in the Persian version, the narcissist ends up diving into the lake to unite with his lover. And he doesn't know how to swim, but he risks everything for that union. And when he drowns, two narcissus flowers emerge at the edge of the lake. And these flowers are his eyes. These two flowers are his eyes, looking at the entire world and seeing the image, this saying that this is me. The entire world is me.
All my relations.
All my
Wow.
relations.
Now that's incredible. I'm so glad to have heard that, and sorry that I had never heard it before. It gives me the notion that for Narcissus, there was the lover, and it was just in the image of the self, but not
Right.
just the image. And then you take that, and it becomes the basis for a real connectedness. That's the sort of stuff that could build a culture. Well,
Yes, and so that the term that I call this kind of like stopping at our own image is a stunted narcissism. And when we see all of our relationships as a reflection of ourselves, that's ripened narcissism. When we have allowed our narcissism to bloom and not just get stunted at one point.
now we're getting somewhere. Um, what about Rumi? You're so well versed in the Persian poetic tradition. What wisdom do you glean from it on the subject of what loneliness is and how to transform it?
Hmm. I'm sure he wasn't really having issues with loneliness, because of the culture where he was, but he was a refugee child himself, and thrown into a different culture, so he had to build community, or tap into an existing community and adapt, like a lot of other refugees. But what I love about it, one of the things that we don't have, among all the relationships that we're lacking is one, the relationship with death, and the other is the relationship with our imagination.
Ooh.
And
Mm-hmm.
so this death and renewal keep, just there's so many examples of it in Persian poetry that like Rumi says, مرده بودم زنده شدم گریه بودم خنده شدم دولت عشق آمد و من دولت پاینده شدم. I was dead and I became alive. I was tears and I became laughter. The reign of love began ruling and I became eternal. So there's a lot about death and renewal.
Yeah, but
And
you don't have to. You don't have to. Formally believe in reincarnation to use that stuff because that's just basic. To how plants grow and to how life works.
how life works. And in my book, A Girl Called Rumi, I have the myth of the seven valleys of love from the one of Rumi's teachers, Attar Neshaburi, who I was like looking at one of these translations and I was just stunned. I was just like stunned. I
Conference
was
of the
like, what?
Birds.
Yes, Conference of the Verse. Thank you. And there's one passage that says something like, this is like a rephrasing, but the soul, like the body, is always in a state of decline or progress. And
Right. Dylan said,
and
what isn't busy being born is busy dying. He
yeah,
probably stole it from that.
right. But the second part is what astounded me, which was one state is in no way better than the other. So we have this, in our dual mind, we always keep seeing progress as a better thing than decline. But our neurons are constantly pruning things that we don't need, or we're not using. Same thing happens in nature, right? And that's a good thing. Cancer progresses a lot, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So like just having a different relationship with death, with decline, with renewal, and with progress is one of those ways that we can really live a fulfilling life.
It's a refreshing reframing, and that we badly need. I mean, I think even loneliness, I mean, the term sort of suggests from an individualistic point of view, right? It's an individual issue, first of all, and one that's based in the emotions. In the Surgeon General's report, I mean, he says he does define loneliness as a subjective emotional state, but if you think of it instead as social isolation, then that's something you can look at objectively. What are the functions that other people play in your life? What are the needs they should be playing or do or don't? What's the quality of your relationship?
Yes. And that's something that we could all use to become more, we should be lifelong learners of relationships and just keep restoring,
Right.
repairing, maintaining relationships.
Right. And builders, and this is where community resources and public policies, influence what our experiences are, the ways we connect or don't connect. So,
Absolutely.
so let's get back to you. This experiment has worked with your arranged friendships. You were the initiator, it sounds like. Did you pick them all sort of by yourself and have one-on-one chats to invite them in, or did you start grouping up and then think of some others? There's more than one way this kind of thing can start.
Yes, I there have been some people who one of the friends have invited, and so people come in and out occasionally, but right now we're really good. We're seven people, and we like that number. So anyways, right now we're happy with it. Who knows what will be in the future, but yeah, so hasn't always been me. And again, it's not a hierarchical thing at all. Just
Right.
because I came up with this idea, that doesn't mean that I'm in any way a leader in this group. We're all, we all take turns to facilitate and it's so natural. It's not like we designate a leader or whatever. It just happens. We all have we have a self-pruning mechanism. So it's like if somebody does too much, it just doesn't happen. We have a way that it all works out. And life is a dance, so we'll dance with those dynamics too if they occur.
I want to ask you about dance and about your work with refugees, I guess more broadly, and how you connect it to these sort of social initiatives. I mean, obviously you were a refugee yourself when you arrived in the country, and the condition of being a refugee is one where you're, acutely dependent on others.
Mm. Yeah, so I came here at the age of 14, and my parents left me here. And it was under extraordinary circumstances. And then they left, and I was like, okay, this is a strange country. I don't speak English. This is like a different planet. And I was really homesick. I was really depressed. I was very traumatized from the oppression and the war that I experienced. It was like 8 years of my childhood spent in that. And so one of the things that I naturally gravitated to was dancing. And I danced a lot and I felt a lot better. And later on, I found out that dancing does indeed reduce trauma, effects of trauma. It decreases anxiety and depression and creates a sense of belonging if you dance with others. So we have to move. Even imagining movement is beneficial. So what one of the things that happened when the Syrian refugees started coming to San Diego, I was doing like Rumi performances with this world-class musical ambassadors of peace with musical backgrounds and recitation, and it was kind of like an edutainment because there was a lot of anti-Muslim and anti-immigrant sentiment in about 2015, 2016. It was starting to grow. And so this was a way to show that culture, the Middle Eastern culture, in specific Persian culture, as a really inclusive, beautiful one, not what you see on TV. And the audience would always be in tears at the end, and it was gorgeous. And so I asked them, I was like, well, what can I do to help the refugees in San Diego? And they said to start a drum circle. And I was like, okay, that's what hippies in Berkeley do. These poor people who are displaced and are traumatized. And it turns out that there is like this wealth of research that drumming and dancing really helps. So I started doing that. And naturally, because I'm more of a dancer than a drummer, I would just kind of switched it to dancing. And I danced with Afghan, Syrian, Iraqi, Kurdish, Iranian refugees in San Diego. And it was beautiful. And we put on a few performances, and again, the audience was crying, and it was just to see like the level of transformation when people first walk in and when they leave is just a miracle. And then when the Muslim ban happened in 2017, 2018, I focused in for Central Americans and Mexicans who were seeking asylum at the U.S.-Mexico border. I started dancing in Tijuana and Mexicali with refugees, and I still hold weekly dance sessions with about 300 refugees in Tijuana. And we do it through Zoom now because during the pandemic, they still wanted to dance and I couldn't go over there. So they said, well, how can we do this? And I was like, well, let's try to do the dance. And it was some trial and error. Now we got it down, and we can really, reap maximum benefit from all that.
Mm. So, I mean, I guess I'm just picking up that, the impulse to connect is just the way you are oriented, so being an ambassador of peace isn't much of a
Yes.
stretch.
What I wanted to do is just dancing helped me, music and dancing. It was illegal in Iran. And then I saw that it was denied to me as a child. And I wanted to bring that which was denied to me as a child, which was music and dancing, and what I really needed as a teenager in a strange country, which was a sense of community together, and provide that for other refugees and share it. And again, there is no like hierarchy there either. We're having a good time. We're laughing. Kids are like shivering in the corner sometimes because of the trauma that they've experienced. And then at the end, they're doing these partner dances, and it's just, again, when I bring volunteers, everyone leaves in tears.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess the way things are in these United States is not likely to change fundamentally, in our lifetime, except in worse ways because the climate's going to pot. But in other words, there will always be this glaring need to connect and create community. You told me you have a sort of new community building vision you've been toying with, and I'd love to hear you describe it.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah. What if we embraced relationship maintenance in a community-based setting? So to create a community center in each neighborhood that provides a nourishing dinner, followed by various breakout groups that they can go for singing, dancing, gaming, discussing local candidate support, climate action, or whatever trade that they want to learn. There would be workshop leaders that are workshop facilitators. Because again, I think it's important that we don't have that hierarchy and people are learning from each other in a setting.
Yeah,
And this would mitigate loneliness and extremism, which research shows goes hand in hand. And
not
it would
surprising.
foster lifelong education, provide relief for busy parents, opportunity for kids to do their homework, and then it's all while offering a non-bar setting in the evening where people of
Right.
all ages can gather. And when I described this to my Kenyan friend, she was like, "So you mean like an African village?" And I was like, "Yes, it's such an intuitive thing that most people immediately get." And right now, as I said, we're living in an anti-village world with highways and cubicles and no viable shared space where it's suitable for multi-generational community, especially at night. Right now, if you don't have a community, only a sliver of the population has an obvious place to go to socialize in the evening, which is a bar. If you're of a
Unless you're
certain
still
age,
part of a religious community that's gathering that regularly. But, of course, we're in this moment when the faiths are declining, and the great thing about them are their community resources. They make the currency of interaction less dear. But
yes,
we need, and part of the reason for the creation of the humanist being is because we secular folks who are gaining in our percentage of the population, not necessarily in our understanding of ourselves as being a group. We need to step up and provide this sort of thing exactly as you're describing. So a venue and a curriculum of sorts.
right. And I think what the thing that was successful about arranged marriage, arranged friendships, the friendship was the goal. It wasn't like, oh, we want to network or we are all interested in a certain activity. That was
We're
it.
all
And
really
this,
learning tango.
right. And then like the friendship would be like a added benefit or a byproduct of that gathering. This is specifically a community for people to, and it doesn't have an agenda like any religious or anything else. It's just a service where, but I mean, the benefits will definitely be there. Like imagine if there was neighborhood centers that were as convenient and available as Starbucks cafes. And if you're traveling or moving to a different town, a different city, you can find these community centers within walking distance where you can get a nutritious, low-cost meal and plug into an existing community. And imagine if the government invested in communities in these ways instead of like the way that they do in corporations, or in addition to, you know, we're talking about democracy, and there's evidence that a similar method has worked out in the past. Folk schools in the 19th century helped transition Nordic countries from poor authoritarian societies to really vibrant democracies in just a few generations. And the Nordic government saw benefit, and they started subsidizing these retreats, and where people became co-authors of democracy, learned self-cultivation, how to repair and maintain and have relationships. And it only took 10% of the population to make this happen, which is incredible. And even here in the US, the Highlander Folk School in Tennessee was attended by Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, and it played an instrumental role in the civil rights and labor movements. And this was inspired by the European model too. So there is, it's very exciting to see that such a thing has worked. And this is a variation of it that adds food, which I think is the key ingredient for a number of reasons. Yeah, so community plus learning plus food in every neighborhood. And it's and I'm also thinking about like overworked parents who have to come home and prepare a meal for their kid after a long day of stressful job, or so many people who are food insecure in this country, so many lonely, isolated people, senior citizens. And then also like the beautiful example of Black Panthers who just transform their communities by feeding kids before school.
So what are you thinking in terms of next steps for getting such a thing off the ground? I presume in San Diego or the environs.
Yeah, if your listeners have any ideas of funding such a pilot, I would like to start it and work out the kinks. So yeah, I'm at the very ground level of looking at grants and ways to make this happen.
I think it's a great model. I'll think about what we might be able to do with it from our group, because, community building is the thing that brought our group together and what we hope to make manifest. So, wow, fabulous idea.
And if you do something like that, definitely keep in touch. I'd love to know how it is all going.
Oh, yes, indeed, and vice versa. Well, for folks who have listened to this whole conversation and still don't feel sure about what they can do, to enrich their own lives in the social connectedness, what would you say?
I would say start working with a relationship with yourself first, because we have so much trauma inside of us that we're not aware of that become obstacles in other relationships. I saw someone that says like, if you're not working on your shadow self, you end up dating it, or something. So the work on ourselves is paramount to just see what, like, where is our blind side right now? What are we doing what are we shy about? All of those, or why don't we want to dance? Like, for example, dance is a trauma response. Lack of, if you're not dancing, I talked to a therapist, a trauma expert for one of my articles, and she's like, well, yeah, you say your mind doesn't want to say, oh, I'm traumatized, so I'm not dancing because I want to shrink into my own body and not expand, and I don't feel safe. What your mind says to just be able to justify you not dancing is that, oh, I'm this is not the appropriate time to dance, or I'm not a good dancer, or not in these times, maybe later, and so we say these things. And so I mean, just something so simple, where people are in Iran are like, just put their lives at risk to dance in public. And here we have the freedom to dance and we don't do it in public. We just don't do it because we're self-censoring ourselves. So a lot of that is going on for us. And we just have to kind of make it a priority. Having a good relationship with our own body, knowing when we're triggered, what nourishes us, and then what conversations nourish us, what kind of settings nourish us, what type of people. Then we become really intuitive how to place ourselves in a sufficient ground where friendships can occur, grow.
Intuitive, but not unstated. I've heard you say a couple of times that you gain advantage by being conscious and speaking openly about what you need, what you want.
Yes. And then also timing is really important. Like, you just have to figure out your own body budget is a beautiful term that I use so much. Like, if we think of our body as an account and bank account, and then, things like beautiful conversations, good sleep, good food, being in nature, exercising, all of those are replenish our bank account. And then things that depleted are like having an argument, not sleeping, being stressed, having an illness, all of those things. And so when we are having conversations with people, we first check in, especially if it's a difficult conversation or a vulnerable conversation, checking in with ourselves. Am I nourished enough to be able to handle this? Do I have enough reserves in my bank account? And then the other person, ask them if you have a shared language like that, or at least perceive that they're in a good place to receive whatever you have to say. If you can't just flat out ask, are you in a good place to have this conversation?
Wow. Those are all the questions I got. Is there anything more that you have a burning need to say about the nature of friendship?
Yeah, and along with how I talked about relationship death, I would say a friendship and a relationship with our imagination is super important too. And right now we have a really dysfunctional relationship where we have this built-in virtual reality natural intelligence machine that's free, requires no subscription fee, available 24/7, no cell reception, Wi-Fi. We can access it at any time. And right now we use it mostly for worrying. So there is a way to let that's why storytelling becomes so important. That's why I wrote my book. And my book is all about the novel is about friendships and relationships, and our relationship with death, our relationship with our friends, and what happens when there's stresses like a war and oppression happen, and your entire region is thrown in a crucible of political oppression. And so yeah, the part of reintroducing magic to our lives, and that I hope to bring into the novel for the readers, is also super important.
Oh, wow. Wow, thank you, Ari Honarvar. I feel so enriched and nourished just knowing that you exist, that I didn't know a few weeks ago, much less getting to meet you and talk to you.
Ah, you're so sweet, Roger. Thank you so much, and I hope we keep in touch.
That would be wonderful. You can keep abreast of Ari Honarvar's activities by going to RumiWithAView.com and signing up for her mailing list. When Humanists Attack, now in its 4th season, is brought to you by The Humanist Being, a secular religious group incorporated in Vermont. You can meet up with us on meetup.com, where we have 2 groups, one based in Burlington, Vermont, and one in Brooklyn, New York. Either one will link you to our online activities, including our street epistemology practice group, our intentional communities discussion group, and our monthly virtual humanist hang. Reach out to one another. To make a friend, be a friend. Good things happen when you listen.